So in this, to the solution of the separate self, when you're talking about multiple lifetimes, there's no reincarnation, just doesn't apply anymore.
Yes. In clear seeing, in jnana, in living understanding, as I call it, reincarnation is just a story from the past, in a way. Not a dismissed story, but nevertheless it is seen for what it is. The whole history has been an expression of the one that I am now. So the incarnation stops because the one incarnating has lost its separate power. In a way, the incarnation does not happen from life to life. As I see it, it actually happens every time a thought, a feeling, a perception arises in our consciousness and is associated, mixed up with I am, I incarnate. So the separate person kind of constantly incarnates as a person. But when jnana is here, when intelligence is here, there is no real incarnation anymore happening there. There's no identification with the thought, the feeling, the perception of this apparent me. So there is just this expression as the one. So if we want freedom from reincarnating, we have to start now. Not hoping that we won't reincarnate into a new body.
That's not what I mean. It's not even so much reincarnating. If we are already the open freedom of everything, then what? Then how could this individualize into incarnating into one body over another body?
It's like making a movie or a video, as I used to make music videos. You create a character, a pop star, you put it in some fancy clothes to reflect the image of a pop star, because pop stars usually don't look ordinary, like gurus usually don't look ordinary. They have to have some special features, images, clothes. So you write a script and you make a movie. So the incarnation is happening, but it's just a play that is happening on the screen. There's no reality to the pop star that usually gets a pop star name also. That is not the real name. You know what I mean? You don't have, you of course never have, in the absolute truth is there is no karma, there is no reincarnation.
No, there's no actor.
There is no actor, there's no past lives, there's no future lives. That's the absolute truth. And expressed as relative truth, it shows as this multiplicity of the play, of the movies. Now, That is the great realization. But from another angle, and that's why there is truth to the Buddhist tradition, to the Christian tradition, to all traditions that kind of also are bound by these characters, because even you know and I know deeply that the character is not real and therefore doesn't really ever incarnate, doesn't ever die, and was never born. The I am that is identified with the body-mind as myself believes that so deeply that it creates this, what I call mental reality. It's like so that's why we then often say all these different realities, right? Like there would be so many realities, because then every mind-made character that is not real lives in its own world, in its own reality, in its own movie, in its own play. And as long I have not seen through that clearly, and also have not, in most cases, liberated the associated feelings in the body of separation, we get caught back into the character. And when we are believing or feeling to be that character, we are incarnating again in this moment. We give juice to the illusion. We give it reality, we feed it with identification, thought and feeling that is associated to, yes, I am this person. And every time we do that, we make the character real again. And then we're suffering. So it's not real, it's not true. There is no room for incarnation in non-dual understanding, but there is a lot of room for incarnation and samsara and suffering in ignorance. That's why we are on the path of understanding, to overcome the ignorance, to see through that, just like you did and expressed right now. And every time we have that clear seeing and feeling, I would say, because the feeling of separation in most cases is even more powerful than the thought, we are free. But every time we buy back into it, we are back in incarnating, back in samsara. So even though it's never happening, because we believe and feel again that it's happening, we're suffering again. And even that is not real, as we know, but damn, it feels real, doesn't it, when it happens? So the understanding is very powerful. The understanding that incarnation, all my lives, all past lives and future lives are just a play of my own consciousness, always witnessed and experienced by consciousness, never truly separating or existing as that character, brings the freedom. But equally, we have to see when I'm suffering again, I must be caught in the illusion again, because this is the trap of non-duality sometimes. Not that, I mean, you're falling in the trap, but in general, this non-duality trap, you know what I mean, is very easy to, that it's just a thought, that it's just an idea, a new idea, this understanding which was maybe real in the moment will be overwritten by memory of that understanding, and then it leads often to this I don't mind my suffering because it's not real. The character is not real. So we want to tell us, it's like a pep talk when we're losing the tennis match and we go to the toilet after the first set and we tell ourselves how great we are and we can do it and we are the better player. In a way, then we give ourselves this non-dual pep talk. Your suffering is not real. You are pure consciousness. And that works a bit maybe because it creates feeling, positivity, but the suffering is the benchmark, or, as I said, the loving everyone is the benchmark, including myself. Do I truly love everyone? Do I truly love myself? Am I truly one with this moment, okay with this moment? Can I see that it's all perfect as it is, as Maharaji said? Then it's my living experience of this understanding. And in this way we bring this highest understanding that you just expressed home down, so to speak, into all levels of our being. And let this understanding penetrate my body, mind, my relationships, my work, etc., as we spoke about many times. So the important, because we speak about our approach today in a way that what is important is in those moments, not that we cannot use thought like in satsang. We can have that pep talk with ourselves even. It's like, hey, I'm not a separate person. What is this nonsense? Why am I buying into this again if I have that space in that moment? Maybe it's like a form of self-inquiry. It's like, bollocks, why are you buying into this story of a separate entity again? But not to stop there, not to use it as a distraction to take me away from the suffering that I may experience in this moment. It's just like I realize maybe, oh, I have identified with the character. There's suffering. I know it's not real. I know I'm not a separate person that is suffering. But in this moment, when I'm suffering, I'm incarnating as a person. So now can I come back to this living understanding, to that silence within, prior to thought, prior to the story about myself? Can I come back, as we do so often in the beginning in the meditations, to the welcoming presence, yes, of my suffering, if it's there, if I'm reincarnating?
So are you saying that only the incarnation, the sense of self, can feel the suffering of the sense of self?
Say again, sorry.
Are you saying only the incarnation can feel the suffering of the incarnation? That, like, the sense of me can, if there's a sense of suffering, then that's the sense of me that is suffering. As soon as there's a sense of suffering, there's a sense of me that automatically is sensing that. I guess what I'm getting at is that the sense of suffering arises with the sense of self, and that sense of self arises in this life. So I was trying to work out what you were talking about, having 7 lives to live, or however many, how that sense of self could possibly be seen to, and clearly it does, because in many religions, reincarnate into other lifetimes, when that sense of self seems to arise in this lifetime, in this body, in this suffering tends to arrive in this lifetime. I don't know. I don't know that really little children have a sense of suffering. I don't know.
As I define suffering, when there is suffering, there is a separate self, an incarnate self. So it's a bit of, we have to see what we mean, no? The words, how I use them. So suffering, I would put synonymous with, I am identified in the moment with my thoughts and feelings as a separate person. So in a way, the term suffering is kind of perpetuating the pain. So as you know, I use the word pain and suffering differently. So emotional pain, which can be also stored very well in the body, may arise and, as we all know, may have quite a momentum, can even take a while, can take quite a while in the beginning when it's allowed and welcome, because it's just this storage of past suffering energetically kind of attached to this subtle body. So in that sense, emotional pain and even story of a personal me arising with that emotional pain will arise in consciousness, but without the identification in the moment, it has no grip, no, it cannot hold on, it cannot perpetuate itself. So with time, usually, progressively, it loses more and more power. So the suffering, usually, with non-dual understanding, gets shorter and shorter, sometimes also more and more intense, because we reach deeper levels of stored identification, of separation. But usually, generally, without making a dogma or rule out of it, the suffering gets shorter, right? Also your experience, right? Because there is not the buying into the story. When we don't buy into the story of the separate me, the pain has its momentum, but really moves through. It's like a hurricane or a thunderstorm. The clouds come, the energy releases itself, it makes the big bangs and some lightning, and then the sky clears. So sometimes these releases in our journey of the separate me occur, but when we are the living, witnessing consciousness of that character in the moment, I don't call it suffering, because the suffering me is not there. There is a neutral observer of the pain, which is sensation, which is thought. So only when the me is in the picture, the separate me, then there is suffering. So when there is no separate me, there cannot be suffering. So there cannot be another 7 lives.